The peaceful hum of Earth's daily life was shattered by an event that no one had anticipated. For 3,000 years, humanity had known nothing but peace, a golden era in which wars were but stories in history books. Earth's cities had flourished, technology advanced at an unimaginable rate, and humanity stood united, a beacon of hope in the galaxy. There were still threats out there, lurking in the dark corners of space, but they were always distant. The humans had built a civilization strong enough to withstand anything, or so they thought. The first sign of trouble came in the form of a message. It wasn't just an ordinary message, but a broadcast transmitted through every communication channel across the globe. It appeared on every screen, whether a phone, television, or computer. The message was not in any known language, yet somehow, every human could understand it, as if the words themselves were directly translated into their minds. The message was simple, but its implications were anything but. Attention, Earth. We are the Carracks, the ruling force of the galaxy. You have been in peace for far too long. This peace ends now. Prepare yourselves for war. Surrender or face extinction. The words sent a chill down the spine of every person who heard them. Silence followed. For a moment, the entire world seemed to hold its breath. No one could comprehend what they had just witnessed. The Carracks were known only in rumors, an alien empire so powerful that it had never been challenged. The threat of war had been a distant concern, a problem for future generations, but now it was here. In an instant, everything changed. Across the globe, governments scrambled to assess the situation. World leaders met urgently in a secret high-level summit. The UN, once a symbol of peace, became a hub of frantic activity as they tried to make sense of what had just occurred. Satellites were tasked with scanning the skies, searching for any sign of the Carracks fleet. But there was nothing, yet. The message was a warning, but it was also a challenge, a call to arms that humans had not been expecting. General Emma Langford, one of Earth's most seasoned military leaders, stood in front of a screen displaying the Carracks' broadcast. Her face was impassive, but inside, a storm of thoughts raged. The Carracks had a reputation for conquering civilizations and leaving nothing behind but destruction. The sheer audacity of the message told her that this was not a bluff. Earth was facing a real, tangible threat, one that could end everything they had built in an instant. She turned to her team of top strategists. This is not a drill. The Carracks are coming. We have to be ready. In the hours that followed, every military base on Earth went into high alert. Communications channels buzzed with the frantic energy of commanders and analysts as they tried to assess their options. For the first time in centuries, human soldiers were forced to prepare for war. But what kind of war was this? Could Earth's military, powerful as it was, even stand a chance against an empire that had wiped out entire planets? The answer, for now, was unclear. But General Langford knew one thing. Humans had survived for 3,000 years because they had never backed down from a challenge. The Carracks may have been formidable, but humanity had something they didn't understand. There was a fire within humans, a resilience that had carried them through the darkest of times. If this was to be Earth's greatest trial, then Langford would make sure humanity faced it head-on. Meanwhile, in the heart of the alien empire, the Carracks watched with interest. Their message had been delivered, and now, all they had to do was wait. The Carracks were an ancient race, powerful and ruthless. They had destroyed countless civilizations, each one weaker than the last. Earth, however, was a different story. The Carracks had underestimated the humans in the past, thinking them too primitive, too isolated. But this time, the Carracks had no intention of making that mistake again. Their fleets were already mobilizing, preparing for the assault. Within a matter of days, the Carracks would be at Earth's doorstep, ready to claim the planet as their own. But what they didn't know was that humanity had not been idle during their time of peace. Hidden in the depths of Earth's most secretive laboratories were technologies far beyond anything the Carracks had ever seen. For the first time in history, Earth would show the universe what it was truly capable of. Back on Earth, as the message continued to haunt the minds of every person, whispers began to spread. Who were the Carricks? What did they want? And most importantly, how would humanity respond? Some feared the worst, believing that Earth stood no chance against such a powerful enemy. Others, however, found themselves filled with a strange sense of defiance. They had faced challenges before, and each time they had emerged victorious. This time would be no different. General Langford, standing in front of the screen that still flickered with the Carricks' message, stared into the unknown. A deep resolve settled in her chest. The Carricks had made a mistake. They had come to Earth thinking they were facing a peaceful, defenseless planet, but they had underestimated the humans. Earth had spent 3,000 years preparing for something like this. No one knew it, but the peace had been the calm before the storm. Now, the storm was coming, and humanity would rise to meet it. The message had been received, and with it, a new chapter in Earth's history was about to begin. One that would show the universe that humanity wasn't just a race to be conquered, it was a force to be reckoned with. And this time, the Carricks would learn that underestimating humans could be the biggest mistake of their lives. The world was in chaos. The sudden alien threat had caught humanity off guard, sending ripples of panic across the globe. People flooded into the streets, unsure of what to do, where to go, or how to prepare. Governments scrambled to formulate a plan, while military bases around the world went into high alert. The Carricks had declared war, but what could humanity do against such a powerful force? It seemed impossible. The Carricks were not like any enemy Earth had faced before. General Emma Langford stood at the center of the operations command, her face a mask of determination. Behind her, screens filled with data and satellite images displayed the immense alien fleet heading toward Earth. She couldn't help but feel the weight of the moment. The planet's future rested on her shoulders, and the actions of every soldier, every scientist, and every civilian who was ready to stand and fight. It was a terrifying reality, but it was one that humanity could not ignore. A quiet murmur filled the room as Langford addressed the assembled officers. We've spent 3,000 years in peace, thinking that we were untouchable, that we could never be invaded. But now, the truth is clear. The Carricks are real. They are coming, and they expect us to surrender. She paused, letting her words sink in. But we won't. We'll stand and fight. Despite the gravity of the situation, the general's voice rang with confidence. The truth was, humans had always been underestimated. The Carricks assumed Earth would crumble in the face of such a massive advanced invasion. They thought humanity would cower in fear, but Langford knew better. Earth might have been peaceful, but it had always been preparing for something like this. Human ingenuity, their capacity for survival, had led to secret military innovations far beyond what anyone had imagined. She flicked a switch, and the lights dimmed as a massive map of Earth and its defense systems was projected onto the screen. We've been working on this for decades, she continued. Our global military networks, our hidden research facilities, our space programs, they've all been built with one purpose: to prepare us for this moment. She pointed to a series of satellites. These satellites are not just for communication. They are armed with weapons capable of taking down even the most formidable of foes. The room went silent as the officers absorbed the weight of the information. For years, the world had kept these secret weapons hidden. Humanity had learned from the mistakes of the past. Never let the enemy know everything you have, and never allow yourself to be caught unprepared. As Langford outlined the plan, the scope of the alien threat began to feel less overwhelming. Yes, the Carricks were formidable, but humanity had its own strengths. The Carricks may have had powerful ships, advanced weaponry, and vast numbers, but they had never faced an enemy like Earth. Humans were adaptable, clever, and relentless when pushed to the edge. They had the capacity to fight in ways the Carricks could never predict. Langford knew this, and it gave her the strength to move forward. Meanwhile, the rest of the world was experiencing the same uncertainty and fear. In the United States, President Elijah Sanders addressed the nation. He spoke of unity, of the strength that humanity had shown in the face of adversity time and time again. "We've fought for our freedom, we've fought for our survival, and we will fight again," he declared. "We are not afraid." In Europe, Asia, and across the globe, leaders made similar speeches, urging their people to stay strong, to trust in their military, and to support each other. But for many, it wasn't enough. The terror of the unknown gripped the hearts of millions. The Carrick's warning was clear. They had come to conquer, and they weren't afraid to wipe out anyone who stood in their way. The prospect of being wiped from existence was a terrifying thought. Despite the fear, some found strength in the uncertainty. Humanity's greatest weapon had always been its ability to rise above the odds, to find solutions when there seemed to be none. It was this strength that would lead to unexpected alliances. Scientists in various countries began to work together, pooling their resources, their knowledge, and their technology. The civilian population, once divided by borders and differences, now had a singular goal: survival. Back in the Operations Command Center, Langford continued to prepare her forces. "We can't afford to wait and react. We need to strike first," she said. "Our satellites are ready, but we'll need boots on the ground as well. The Carrick's may have technology beyond our wildest dreams, but we have something they don't: human resilience." She turned to her team of elite soldiers who had been training for a moment like this. Sergeant Kai Williams stood among them, his face hardened by years of combat, but filled with a quiet confidence. He wasn't afraid of the Carrick's. If anything, he was ready to show them just what humanity was capable of. "We'll need every man and woman we can get, and we'll need to work together like never before," Langford added. "This will be our finest hour, or our last stand. But I know we will fight, and we will survive." Across the globe, military forces were mobilizing. In space, Earth's defense fleet, built secretly over decades, powered up its weapon systems. On the ground, soldiers began to train with weapons they had never used before, high-tech, alien-inspired devices that had been hidden away until now. Humanity wasn't just reacting. They were preparing to fight back, and this time, the Carrick's would learn that underestimating humans was a grave mistake. As Earth braced for the impending war, the Carrick's continued their journey toward the planet, oblivious to the storm that was brewing below. They had underestimated humanity's capacity for war, for survival, for defiance. But the message was clear: Earth would not bow down. No matter the cost, humanity would stand tall against the invasion. The Carrick's would soon learn that when you challenge humans, you awaken a force that can't be easily defeated. The countdown to the first battle had begun, and the fate of the planet rested in the hands of its most unlikely warriors, its people. The first signs of the alien invasion began to appear in Earth's skies. At first, it was just a blip, nothing too alarming. A speck on the radar that could easily be dismissed as a satellite malfunction or space debris. But as more objects appeared, moving in perfect formation and descending from the outer reaches of space, it became impossible to ignore. The Carrick's fleet was here, and it was huge. Massive ships, each one the size of a small city, slowly entered Earth's atmosphere. They glowed with an eerie light, like floating beacons of destruction. Across the planet, people were glued to their screens, watching as the Carrick ships came closer. The sight was awe-inspiring and terrifying. These weren't just any alien ships. They were monuments to power, towering and foreboding, their sleek metallic surfaces reflecting the light of the sun. The ships were not built for subtlety. Their size alone was meant to intimidate, and intimidate they did. In the United States, President Elijah Sanders addressed the nation once more, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "The time has come," he said. "We will defend this planet with everything we have. This is our world, our future, and we will not let it fall." As the Carrick's fleet descended closer, Earth's forces began to mobilize. They had been preparing for this moment for years, but now that it was real, the weight of the situation was undeniable. All the resources, all the time spent in secret research and development, were about to be tested in the most critical of ways. Every human military, from the smallest national defense unit to the largest superpowers, was readying themselves to face the enemy head-on. General Langford, now fully immersed in the chaos, stood in front of a giant screen showing the Carrick's fleet. Her fingers drummed the table nervously, but her mind was calm. It was the same sense of control she had learned in battle. Focus on the mission, not the overwhelming odds. "We have one advantage," she said, her voice commanding attention. "The Carricks are expecting us to react with fear, to fall apart. But we will show them that they've underestimated us." She flicked a button, and a new display appeared. On the screen, intricate designs of Earth's advanced weaponry filled the space. Defense satellites capable of firing energy beams, massive spaceborne weapon systems, and highly trained ground troops equipped with alien tech that was as advanced as anything the Carricks could deploy. Humanity had spent years reverse engineering alien technology, and now it would be put to the test. Sergeant Kai Williams, standing to the side, observed the scene in silence. He had been part of the elite training force tasked with testing the new weapons. The tech was powerful, but untested in a real battle. He could feel the uncertainty in the air. He was ready, but no one could predict what they would face when the Carricks arrived in full force. Across the globe, military units were preparing for the worst. Entire fleets of fighter jets were stationed, ready to take to the skies in defense of Earth. Tanks and other military vehicles were lined up, their guns powered up and aimed. The world had not seen a mobilization like this since the last great global wars, but the sense of unity was different this time. Every country, every city, was united by the same goal: survival. As the first Carrick ships entered the atmosphere, a sudden explosion of light and sound filled the sky. The attack had begun. Carrick's warships, releasing their deadly payloads, descended rapidly onto Earth's surface, causing widespread devastation. The explosions rocked cities. Fires raged through buildings as the alien weapons unleashed their terrible power. The ground shook as shockwaves sent entire neighborhoods tumbling. Earth's defenses, though formidable, were struggling to match the sheer power of the Carrick's assault. In the midst of it all, General Langford stood her ground. She glanced at the screen showing Earth's largest defense satellite, which had just been activated. It fired a concentrated energy beam, hitting one of the Carrick's ships. For a moment, it seemed to work. There was a flash, and the Carrick's vessel staggered in the sky. It was the first sign of hope, but it was short-lived. The ship stabilized, and more alien ships joined the fray, each one unleashing devastating attacks of their own. "It's not enough," Langford muttered, her eyes scanning the chaos unfolding. "We need a bigger push." Across the world, leaders scrambled to issue orders. The military's reaction was swift, but the Carricks were everywhere. It wasn't just the spaceships anymore. They had sent down landing forces, troops that descended to Earth's surface with terrifying speed. These Carrick's warriors were formidable, wearing dark, sleek armor that made them look more like shadows than soldiers. They moved with precision and deadly intent, overwhelming the local defenses wherever they landed. Human forces were forced into close-quarters combat, with troops engaging in firefights with Carrick's invaders on the ground. In every major city, street battles erupted as humanity fought desperately to protect its homes. But despite the fierce resistance, it was clear that the Carricks were not going to make it easy. Earth's military, while brave and skilled, was now up against an enemy unlike anything it had ever faced. In the midst of the chaos, Sergeant Williams and his team were deployed to a hot zone in New York City. The area had been heavily bombed, and the Carricks were advancing quickly. As they made their way through the rubble-strewn streets, Williams felt the weight of the moment pressing on him. This was no longer just a fight for survival. It was a fight for humanity's very existence. The team approached a Carrick's landing site, and Williams gave the signal to attack. The battle was brutal. Human soldiers, armed with alien technology and their own advanced weapons, fought the Carricks with everything they had. But even as they made progress, the Carricks were relentless. Every time a Carrick's warrior fell, another took its place, and the battle seemed endless. Langford watched from the command center, feeling the tension rise. Her mind raced with possible strategies. Earth's weapons were powerful, but they weren't invincible. The Carricks had advanced too quickly, and they seemed to have no weakness. But one thing was clear: they were not going to win by sheer force alone. This war was not just about technology. It was about something far deeper. Humans had something the Carricks didn't: determination, courage, and the will to protect their world. Langford knew that Earth's strength lay not just in its weapons, but in its people. And that strength was about to be tested in ways no one could have predicted. The battle was far from over, and humanity's greatest fight had only just begun. But as long as there was life on Earth, they would not give up. The Carricks had come to destroy, but humanity would prove that they were not as easy to conquer as the aliens had believed. The battle raged on across the globe. Earth's cities were battered, its skies darkened by the massive Carrick's fleet. But the resolve of humanity was unwavering. It was no longer a battle for survival. It was a battle for dignity, for the future of every man, woman, and child on Earth. Every corner of the world had become a war zone, and the streets were filled with smoke, fire, and the sounds of destruction. Yet, amidst the chaos, there was also something else, something that the Carricks had failed to anticipate: unity. As the days went by, Earth's military forces adapted quickly to the alien technology that had once seemed insurmountable. General Langford had been right. The humans had underestimated themselves, but the Carricks had made the same mistake. They had assumed that the sheer might of their advanced weapons would crush the will of mankind. What they didn't understand was that humanity's strength wasn't in its weapons alone, but in its unyielding spirit. In underground bunkers, across ruined cities, and in military outposts, soldiers and civilians alike continued to fight back. The Carricks were strong, yes, but humanity was fighting with the fury of a species that had long been underestimated. Every victory, no matter how small, was celebrated as a triumph. Every time a Carrick ship was taken down, or a battle was won, it sent a message: Earth was not going to surrender. Sergeant Kai Williams and his team were at the forefront of this resistance. They had been part of the special task force sent to New York, and now they were in the heart of Washington, D.C., facing off against a Carrick's battalion that had set up camp in the city center. The battle was brutal, with alien and human forces clashing in the streets, but Williams felt something different now: a sense of purpose, a burning desire to protect the home that he had once taken for granted. "We hold this line," Williams said, his voice calm but determined as he surveyed the battlefield. "We fight for every single person back home. We fight for Earth." His words rang in his soldiers' ears, filling them with the strength they needed to push forward. With every step, they advanced through the shattered city, through crumbling buildings and twisted metal, fighting off Carrick's invaders. But the alien soldiers were relentless, pushing back with terrifying efficiency. Williams could see the determination in their eyes, the intensity of their focus as they fought. But what the Carricks lacked was the passion, the unyielding drive that humans possessed. At the same time, in the operations center, General Langford and her team were coordinating efforts to launch a counteroffensive. They had been working tirelessly, running simulations, studying the enemy's weaknesses, trying to find a way to tip the scales in humanity's favor. There was a growing sense of urgency in the air. The Carricks were intelligent, strategic. If they could not be stopped soon, they would overwhelm Earth's defenses. "We have one shot at this," Langford said, her voice steady, but carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. "This is our chance to take them down once and for all." The plan was simple: but it was dangerous. Langford had ordered the full deployment of Earth's most powerful weapon, the new, experimental energy cannon hidden deep within the heart of a military base in the Nevada desert. It had the potential to destroy a Carrick's mothership in one blow, but there was one problem. The energy needed to power it would drain Earth's already limited resources, leaving them vulnerable to a retaliatory strike if it failed. But Langford was certain this was the best chance they had. As the team worked on launching the weapon, Langford's thoughts turned to what they had learned over the past few days. The Carricks might have advanced technology, but they still had vulnerabilities. Their forces were vast, yes, but they had also spread themselves thin. The alien invaders had not anticipated Earth's resilience, and that was something that the Carricks couldn't easily counter. In the middle of a critical battle on the ground, Sergeant Williams received an urgent transmission. The energy cannon was ready to fire. It was humanity's chance to strike a decisive blow against the Carricks. All units, Langford's voice came over the comms. The energy cannon is ready. Prepare for the final strike. The world held its breath. The Carricks were still making their way through the chaos of Earth's cities, but now there was something different in the air. Humanity had fought back, and they had forced the aliens to stop and rethink their tactics. The ground forces, like Williams's team, had taken down several Carricks outposts. It wasn't enough to win, but it was enough to send a clear message. Earth was still alive, still fighting. Back in Washington, D.C., as Williams and his team moved forward, they spotted the alien leader, a Carrick's general standing at the heart of the battlefield. The general was taller than the others, covered in dark armor that shimmered with an otherworldly light. It was the one they needed to defeat if they were going to stop this invasion. "Focus fire on the general," Williams shouted. His soldiers aimed their weapons, and a rain of gunfire filled the air. The Carrick's general moved quickly, dodging the blasts and retaliating with precision. The battle was fierce, but the human soldiers had one advantage: their ability to adapt. They learned quickly, covering each other's blind spots, coordinating their movements, and never backing down. As the general moved in for a final strike, Williams and his team flanked him, catching him off guard. It was a last-ditch effort, but it worked. The general fell, collapsing to the ground with a loud crash. The battlefield went silent for a moment. The Carrick's forces hesitated. They had lost their leader. "Target locked," came the message from the operations center. The energy cannon was locked onto its target. With a flick of a switch, a blinding beam of energy shot out into the sky, striking the largest Carrick ship with the force of 1,000 explosions. The ship shuddered, its massive frame crumpling under the intensity of the blast. For a moment, the entire world seemed to hold its breath. The Carrick ship trembled, and then exploded in a flash of light. The first victory. But there was still more to do. The battle was far from over. Yet, as the Carrick ships began to retreat, humanity knew one thing for sure: they weren't going down without a fight. The war had just begun, but humanity had proved one undeniable truth: their will to survive was stronger than any alien threat. The Carricks had come to conquer, but they would learn a painful lesson. Earth was not a world to be underestimated. The Carrick's forces began to retreat, but their withdrawal was not the end of the war. It was only a temporary pause in a much larger, ongoing battle. Across the globe, Earth's citizens felt a momentary sense of relief, but the victory was fragile. The Carricks were not the type of enemy to simply walk away, and their retreat only hinted at something far more ominous. As their massive fleet turned and retreated into the void of space, there was a disturbing silence that followed, a silence that spoke of the calm before an even greater storm. General Langford stood at the front of a massive operations center, her face etched with concern. The defeat of the Carrick's mothership was a significant win, but it was not enough to guarantee the end of the war. The alien force had more resources at their disposal than humanity had even begun to comprehend. The Carricks had been strategic, and they had likely retreated to regroup, to plan their next devastating move. "We've only just scratched the surface," Langford said, her voice low but commanding. "The Carricks will return, and when they do, we need to be ready." Her words were grim, but the soldiers around her were resolute. The human spirit had been tested like never before, but it was clear Earth would fight until the last breath. And now, with the Carricks temporarily in retreat, humanity had the breathing room they needed to prepare. In military bases around the world, the mood was a mixture of cautious optimism and grim determination. Engineers and scientists worked around the clock, building on the advancements they had gained through studying Carrick's technology. They were enhancing Earth's weapons, fine-tuning every piece of machinery that would be needed to defend the planet when the Carricks returned. But there was something else at play now, a new understanding. Earth wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. It was fighting to prove that it would not be a victim. It was fighting to prove that humanity had its own destiny to fulfill. Sergeant Kai Williams and his team, though weary from the previous battles, were already back in action. They had been given a crucial assignment: to take the fight directly to the Carricks. While Langford's team worked to prepare defenses and enhance Earth's technology, Williams and his unit would be sent deep into space to a Carricks-controlled asteroid base to gather intelligence and disrupt the alien invaders' operations. The mission was risky, even by military standards. The Carricks might have retreated, but they weren't blind. Their surveillance systems were powerful, and if the human team was discovered, they would be obliterated in an instant. But Williams and his team were no strangers to danger. They had fought through some of the worst battles humanity had faced and had survived. This mission was no different. The stakes were higher, yes, but so was their determination. "We'll be in and out before they know we're there," Williams said to his team as they boarded the stealth shuttle. "We take out their comms, gather intel, and get back. No heroics, just the mission." The shuttle rocketed through the atmosphere and into the vastness of space. The stars twinkled in the distance, a reminder of how small the human race was in the grand expanse of the universe. But as the ship passed through the reaches of Earth's orbit and moved into the vast darkness of space, there was no sense of insignificance. There was only the sharp, focused clarity that comes when you know that everything you're fighting for is at stake. As they neared the asteroid base, the stealth shuttle cut its engines to avoid detection. The team moved quickly, scanning for Carrick's activity. They were all wearing the latest combat gear, suited up for the worst-case scenario. But the mission didn't go as smoothly as they had hoped. Upon arrival, they found the Carrick's base was far more fortified than they had expected. Multiple shield generators surrounded the base, making it nearly impenetrable. They would have to find a way to breach the defenses, and quickly. Williams knew that time was against them. The longer they were on the asteroid, the higher the chances that they would be detected by the Carrick's patrols. "We'll disable the shield generators," Williams ordered. "Team 1, cover the perimeter. Team 2, with me. We're going inside." With tactical precision, the teams split up. Williams and his squad advanced toward the shield generators, while the other team created distractions, drawing the Carrick's forces away from their position. As they approached the generators, the unmistakable hum of alien technology filled the air. The Carricks had perfected their defenses, and there was no margin for error. Using a mix of human technology and reverse-engineered Carrick's equipment, they set to work. Sweat dripped from Williams' brow as he worked quickly, patching into the alien systems. Each passing second brought more danger. But they had no choice. They had to shut down the shields if they wanted to succeed. Almost there, Williams muttered under his breath as he typed furiously at the control panel. Then, just as he was about to disable the shields, a loud alarm blared. The Carricks had detected their presence. "They know we're here," Williams shouted. "Move, move, move." The quiet stealth operation erupted into chaos. The ground shook as Carrick's troops mobilized, and the team fought their way through a hail of laser fire. The alien warriors were swift and deadly. But the human team was faster, more agile. They had something the Carricks didn't: human ingenuity and the will to fight. With a final burst of energy, Williams disabled the shields, and the way to the heart of the base opened. The team rushed forward, battling through Carrick soldiers and setting explosives to sabotage key structures. Their mission was far from over, but they had struck a powerful blow. Back on Earth, Langford and the global military watched as the Carrick's base's systems began to falter. It wasn't just the destruction of key facilities, it was the message it sent. Humanity was not only capable of defending itself, it was capable of taking the fight to the heart of the enemy. It was a turning point in the war. As the human team made their escape, Williams could feel the weight of what they had just accomplished. This wasn't just a victory, it was a statement. The Carricks had underestimated humanity's resolve, and now they would learn that mistake the hard way. The war was far from over, but the balance had shifted. The Carricks had seen what humans were capable of, and their confidence would now be their greatest weakness. Back on Earth, the preparations for the final battle had begun. The humans had proven their strength, and the Carricks were about to learn that the fight for Earth would not end until humanity was victorious. The war had just entered its most dangerous phase, but humanity was ready. The days following the mission to the Carrick's base were filled with a heavy anticipation. The initial successes had raised spirits, but they had also ignited a fire of determination across the globe. Earth was no longer just on the defensive. Humanity had begun to take the fight to the heart of the Carrick's empire. The world's military forces worked tirelessly, refining tactics, upgrading weapons, and preparing for the inevitable final clash. General Langford was right. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about proving to the universe that Earth wasn't a place to be conquered, it was a place to be respected. As the Carricks regrouped, they realized the damage they had sustained was not something they could easily recover from. Their retreat was meant to be strategic, but it was clear now that their forces were stretched thin. They had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, to innovate, and to fight back with a ferocity that no alien empire had anticipated. The Carrick's leadership had spent years carefully planning their invasion, but they hadn't accounted for the relentless will of Earth's people. Their ships, their technology, their weapons, none of it mattered if they didn't have the resolve to match the humans' determination. Back on Earth, the final stages of the war were approaching. Langford and her staff knew that this moment was humanity's last chance to strike a decisive blow. The Carricks were not just alien invaders. They were conquerors, and they wouldn't stop until they had subjugated the entire planet. The only way to truly end the war was to destroy the Carricks once and for all. They needed to cripple the enemy's leadership and make sure they could never return. The plan was set. The combined forces of Earth's greatest military powers had been working together like never before. From the streets of Washington, D.C. to the high-tech bunkers of the Nevada desert, humanity was united in their resolve. General Langford was coordinating the final assault, and Sergeant Kai Williams' team was once again thrust into the heart of the mission. This time, the stakes were higher. It wasn't just about taking down one Carrick's base. This was about ending the war for good. "We hit them hard and fast," Williams said to his team, the weight of their task heavy in his voice. "We destroy their leadership. We wipe out the heart of their operation." The team suited up, their faces set in grim determination. The mission was dangerous. There was no room for error. The Carrick's forces were waiting for them, and they were ready to retaliate. But Williams and his squad knew what they were fighting for. They were fighting for the survival of their world. They were fighting for every life on Earth, and they would stop at nothing to see it through. The final battle began in the barren reaches of space. The Carrick's fleet had regrouped in a distant galaxy, protected by layers of shields and defensive technology. The last line of defense for their empire. But humanity had learned, adapted, and now they had technology that could challenge even the mightiest of the Carrick ships. Earth's finest engineers had developed a new weapon, something that could penetrate the Carrick shields, something that could turn the tide once and for all. The final confrontation began with an attack on the Carix's command ship, a colossal structure that hovered above their homeworld, directing their forces across the galaxy. As Earth's forces moved in, the Carix responded with overwhelming force. Their ships fired powerful beams of energy, their weapons unleashing destruction across the void. Yet, the human fleet held firm. The tide had begun to turn. In the heat of battle, Sergeant Williams and his team boarded a specially designed assault craft, making their way toward the Carix command ship. The hull of their craft rattled as it entered the atmosphere of the Carix world. Through the thick layers of smoke and chaos, they saw the massive fortress where the Carix leadership resided. They had one chance, and they had to make it count. Every minute counted. Inside the ship, the corridors were eerily quiet, and the team moved through them with deadly precision. The walls, made of an alien metal, hummed with the energy of the Carix technology. They could hear the distant sounds of battle raging outside, but their focus was singular. They had a mission: to take down the Carix leadership and ensure that the war would end in humanity's favor. As they reached the heart of the command ship, they encountered the Carix leadership, a group of the highest-ranking officials. They were taller than their soldiers, their bodies draped in shimmering armor that seemed to glow with an unnatural light. The room was filled with the hum of alien machines and the cold, calculating eyes of the Carix leaders. But there was something about them, something that made them seem less formidable in the face of humanity's will. "We've come for you," Williams said, stepping forward. His team followed suit, weapons ready, their eyes locked on the Carix leaders. The Carix leaders stood silently, assessing the humans before them. The arrogance that had once filled their eyes was now replaced with wariness. They had underestimated humanity before, and now they were paying the price. The ensuing battle was nothing like anything the team had faced before. The Carix leaders were powerful, their movements swift and deadly. But the humans had learned. They had trained, adapted, and prepared for this moment. They had come to understand the Carix better than the invaders had understood them. The fight was fierce, but the humans fought with a tenacity that surprised the Carix. With every blow they landed, with every maneuver they made, humanity proved its strength, its resolve. And finally, it was over. The Carix leaders were defeated, their control over the galaxy shattered. Outside, the battle raged on, but it was clear. The tide had turned. With the leadership destroyed, the Carix forces began to falter. The remaining ships retreated, their warriors scattering. The Earth's forces pushed forward, and the alien invasion was finally over. The humans had won. The victory was hard-earned, but it was theirs. As the dust settled, and the last remnants of the Carix forces retreated into the void, the world took a collective breath. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged victorious. In the aftermath, General Langford stood before the world's leaders. The war was over, and Earth had proven something powerful to the universe. Humanity was not a species to be crushed, to be dominated. It was a species that would fight, and fight hard, until the very end. "The Carix came here to conquer," she said, her voice steady and filled with pride. But what they didn't understand was that humanity doesn't surrender. We don't bow to anyone. With those words, the world began to rebuild. The scars of war would remain, but the message was clear. Earth had endured, and it had triumphed. The Carix had tried to destroy humanity, but instead they had unleashed the true strength of the species that had never known how to quit. The 3,000-year peace might have ended, but humanity had just begun to prove its place in the cosmos. The galaxy now knew that when Earth fought, it fought for everything, and nothing would ever stand in its way again.